got to win both of these damn games. You want to be in, you got to win them both. Simple as that. But it starts with the Jets.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Steelers Roundtable, a non-victory Monday edition. The Steelers losing to the Bills on Sunday Night Football, 17-10. I want to introduce my panel before we recap and talk about moving forward. Former offensive lineman Craig Wolfley, kind enough to join the program. A lot of questions for him in terms of the Steelers offense. Also, Bob Labriola is joining us once again. I promise he is not grumpy at all today. And Matt Williamson is here as well. So, guys, you heard Cam say it is simple as winning your next two games. Have to treat them as if they are playoff games, which the Steelers said they wanted to do against the Bills, but the playoffs are still, Labs, whether it feels like it or not, this are still a possibility.
Yeah, they are. And, I had hopes. I shouldn't even tell you this because it'll ruin my reputation. But going into last night's game, I had hopes for the 5th seed. And, because I was thinking, if the Steelers found a way to beat Buffalo and then you win one of the last two, you have a chance to be the 5th seed. And the difference between 5th and 6th is the difference between going to Kansas City if you're 6th and going to Houston, which before yesterday's games, it still could have been Tennessee because Houston and Tennessee played twice. But once those games were over, then it was obviously Houston. And, for me, if you were going to go to the playoffs, why not win a game or two when you're there? And I just think that, the easier path is obviously the Texans than the Chiefs. But I think that's out the window now. So, again, though, this season to me is totally different. It's not one. I wouldn't use the word expectation to describe this Steelers season. I'd use the word appreciation because I really think that where they are, what they've done, should be appreciated. And just getting into the playoffs this year, unlike a lot of other Steelers seasons, that's kind of expected. But this year, it shouldn't be. And I think getting into the playoffs is an accomplishment in and of itself.
My first thoughts when I was thinking about it was Houston, Kansas City. There's brisket and beef in both cities. We're good. The point is, if you're going to travel, you travel where it's good. But the fact
you could go to Kansas City and eat sushi like you and your boy Tunch did down.
That was a mistake that we don't want to repeat, nor do we want to talk about, right? Absolutely. So the point being is, we are where we are, and I agree with you 100%. This is a season unlike itself. And anything I've seen in a long time. And when we were 1-4 and Ben was out and you're sitting there going to it and everything. But think about it, 1-4 and you're thinking, wow, this season, this could well be over. But it's not. And it's been sort of magical and a little bit in the way it's come about with Duck and everybody else. And we're not done writing it yet. It's not over. And so you're still in the thick of this. And so I think this is really exciting.
Yeah, I don't think beggars can't be choosers of do you want to go to Kansas City or Houston, and Kansas City would be a very challenging place to play, obviously. But the fact that we're having this discussion in the middle of December, considering everything they dealt with, is crazy to me, and it's really remarkable.
All right, well, as Cam Hayward said, you have to win the next two games. The Jets are next on the docket. So we're going to play a little fill in the gap here. So, Matt, I'm going to start with you. Okay. Our statement today, Sunday's offensive performance was
challenged. I mean, it was a step up against I consider the Steelers, the Niners, and the Patriots as the best three defenses in the league, and the Bills right behind them. The teams they've played recently going into this one aren't anywhere near that conversation. They're at the bottom of the league. And it was just a step up, a much more difficult playoff-like opponent. And it showed. Some of the weaknesses of the offense are hard to overcome against such a good defense.
Wolf, fill in the blank for me.
All right, Sunday's offensive performance was like eating sushi in Kansas City, okay? It was not what you wanted. You got your desires. You have your thoughts about it, but it didn't happen and manifest itself as it should have. This was a defense that was a step up in competition. You better believe it. There were some guys out there that really bring it, and they brought a lot. The fact was, I really felt going into this game with two high-voltage defenses that you were going to see, with two young quarterbacks, somebody's going to make a mistake. And somebody's going to blink. And unfortunately, it was Duck. And that's the way it manifested itself on this night. But again, this was a step up with the defenses, and they just did not get the job done the way they needed to.
Labs?
Eye-opening. Eye-opening for me for two reasons. Buffalo is a playoff team. That is now a fact. And to beat a team like Buffalo, which is a playoff team, you need to perform a certain way offensively. Now, there are other teams that the Steelers could meet in the playoffs that don't have a defense as good as Buffalo's, but their offense will be much better than Buffalo's. And so then in that sense, the Steelers' offense needs to keep pace at some point to some degree. Let's just pretend Kansas City, because that's what we were kicking around. You're not going to beat the Chiefs 17-10.
No,
17-14. Yes, they're going to score, so you have to score. Even though the Steelers' defense is very good, maybe one of the best in the league, the Chiefs are going to score. And so to have a chance in that game, your offense has to keep pace. Now, if you're playing a team like the Bills with a great defense, then you have to be able to hold your own against that defense. So to me, what I saw Sunday night was that the Steelers' offense is currently constituted is not able to do that against either option, either kind of challenge. They're not going to be able to score a lot of points to keep pace with an offense. They're not going to be able to solve a really good defense, not turn the ball over, and allow that unit to dominate them and take control of the game either. So, eye-opening.
All right, so put your offensive coordinator hats on. Matt, we'll start with you. What are you doing to help get this offense to what Labs is saying, to the point where it can win these next 2 games and hopefully make a splash in the playoffs?
I mean, with all respect to Duck, I mean, he's an undrafted player for a reason. You watch him throw out routes from the far hash, and that's a liability. You just can't do it in this league, and the book is out on him. I don't know where Mason is right now. I'm not in the building. I'm not in the quarterback meeting room. But if he has his confidence back, I mean, he has major league tools, and you have to have at least a baseline at every position in this league, and I'm not sure the quarterback now does. I know Rudolph does. I think I'd make that switch.
Wolf?
With all due respect to everybody, I started off liking the Duck way back in OTAs, preseason, everything else. The story is something. What I would do is I would start to go under center a little bit more. I would get the guys in a 3-point stance. I would find me a fullback and be able to operate a little bit more from that grouping and be able to run the ball, play action, creating some more opportunities with trap passes and screens, and rather less than things that are really arm heavy, that you could actually do some things that aren't so dependent on a great arm. I like the kid, and I like the fact that he's a battler. I'd like to see him be able to finish this. I believe Mason has got the upside in the sense of talent and longevity overall, but the fact is, right now, with the way this kid is, I don't think what he did was egregious last night. I think there were a lot of things working not against him, but not with him. And I think the fact is that a little bit more patience might be beneficial right now.
Labs, your take?
I would have made the move Sunday night at quarterback. I mean, I would have. It's not my decision, but that's what I would have done. And I would have done it similarly for the reasons that Mike Tomlin explained that he made the move the first time. Because he said he was looking for a spark, and I asked him about the spark, and he said it's not so much looking for it from the replacement quarterback, but I'm looking at the other 10 guys on the field, how they are performing.
That's important.
And they didn't look to me like, I won't say they were engaged, because I don't want this to become they weren't giving effort, because that's not what he meant, and that's not what I'm trying to say. But the other 10 guys out on the field with Mason Rudolph in the Bengals game in the first half were not performing. They were not in sync. They were not what they can be or what they need to be. And so he made the change to Devlin Hodges, and the other 10 guys picked it up as well. That's what I'm looking for in making the move back to Mason Rudolph. I'm more interested in the other 10 guys necessarily than the quarterback. I also agree with Matt, though. I do think there's, to use a phrase that I've come to understand, the Mendoza line, where you cannot be below that line, and there's certain heights, speed, different kinds of things that if you don't have them, I don't think you're an NFL player. And Devlin Hodges' arm strength is very borderline, I've been told, for the NFL. So I would go back to Mason Rudolph, hope that it ignites the other 10 guys on offense, and maybe you can get a little bit going here, because last Tuesday when asked about Mason Rudolph and what he's seeing from him. Mike Tomlin was very effusive in his praise and talked about the solid individual and competitor he is and the way he's been reacting to this and approaching his business on a day-to-day basis. I think, maybe you say, Mason, this is it, buddy. This is it. You got it. Whatever that is that was preventing you from pulling the trigger, you got to put that away. You got to go out there and make some plays. That's what we need, and see how he responds. Because I also think you need to learn about him moving forward.
No question.
So that's what I would do.
You mentioned the other. I'm sorry.
Go
You mentioned the other 10 guys, and as you were saying that, I'm sitting here thinking, maybe you don't use 3 tight ends, including Banner, 4 running backs, 5 receivers through the course of the game. Get your best 5 out there. Use 6 or 7 skill guys. Try to build a little more continuity with those guys, especially when Juju's back and now Connor's back in the fold. In all respect to those guys, but Gentry hasn't played a lot. People like that, maybe you just cut their snaps heavily.
The other thing I would say is you're right with the other guys in the huddle, and that's one of the things that I was looking for last night, was looking at the other guys in the group. And those guys were still there. They still look like they're in on it. They still look like they're battling, they're fighting, and everything else. And so I understand what you're saying. The effect on the other guys is huge and can be problematic, but I don't think that Duck has lost the other guys right now.
Well, I don't know that lost them is the correct way I was trying to go with it, but they're not performing. They're not.
Well, not all of them, that's for certain.
And so, again, I don't think that either one of those guys, Mason Rudolph or Devlin Hodges, is to the level that Ben is, where you give him a leash and you put up with and allow him to work himself through a lot of that stuff. Neither one of these guys has enough in the bank to do that kind of stuff. And so you put Mason Rudolph in, and if it doesn't work, you go back to Hodges again. I have no problem with any of that because, as I said, we talked earlier. We're in uncharted territory here with this season, and treat quarterback like running back. If Benny Snell isn't getting it done, then you put in James Conner. If he's not getting it done, you put Benny Snell back in. You don't have to treat it like you don't have to treat quarterback like you do when you have established, proven players there.
All right, we are going to talk much more here on the Steelers Roundtable about the defense. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
It's disappointing right now. Obviously, you hate to lose, but I think after like the first loss, how you respond is going to define kind of who I am, and I'm disappointed right now, but I'm not. A couple of days, I'm not going to be like. I'm still going to be who I am. Still going to be confident. Still know that I can get the job done.
They were able to execute when it really mattered, and I think we could keep them in check for the most part, but they were able to get chunks when they absolutely needed them, and I think that was really the difference for us defensively.
All right, time to talk now about the Steelers defense. And guys, all of the defensive players in the locker room last night, their whole thing was, we don't need the offense to do more. We need to do more. We have the players that are capable of doing it. So let's talk about the D and maybe where some things went astray. Matt, we'll start with you.
The offense didn't help them. You deal with 4 turnovers and losing the time possession battle in the NFL. Eventually, that's going to take your toll. Edmonds got beat. I think it was on him. And he looked like he was looking for help. It wasn't there. But all in all, what more do you want from this group? If they don't score a touchdown, it seems like everyone's down on the team. That was a remarkable performance last night. They were very good.
It really was. And, I agree with you, Matt. The one part that again, it got, you had to get flipped at is you give up 4 sacks and 7 quarterbacks hits, and you only get 1 sack and give up 5 quarterback hits. Man, they were capable of beating that line more than what they showed last night. And that was disappointing to me because I really thought you'd get after Josh Allen. I thought on the inside, Mitch Morse I thought is very good, but the guards, they have some deficiencies. Some of the tackles, I thought you could be able to run some twists and get after them, but you could knock Josh Allen around and do as they're doing right now, do that 4 or 5 more times.
The thing for me was, I thought Steven Nelson has had a tremendous year. And he had his first interception last night. It was a really nice return. Should have, led the points, but, the offensive deficiencies prevented that. But, man, did Josh Allen go to John Brown a lot of times and convert a lot of third downs, and they were not 3rd and 2s either. I mean, when it seemed like when he needed a chunk play on 3rd down, he went right to John Brown, who often, it seemed to me anyway, was being single covered by Steven Nelson. I mean, is that the sense you guys got? Because it looked like he was out there by himself to me. And so, for some reason, the Bills decided that, that was a matchup they could exploit, and they did a pretty good job with it. And I thought a lot of those 3rd down conversions, maybe not so much in terms of the sheer number of them over the course of the game, but in the situations that some of them were converted, the Steelers would have them, I thought, in a 3rd down situation where here comes the sack or the takeaway. I've seen this all year. Josh Allen was hitting John Brown, and he was making plays. There's one right there. Those kind of things. If nothing else, maybe they didn't get him on the scoreboard with that, but it flipped the field. And for an offense like the Steelers and the way it was playing last night, creating a long field is just as good as scoring yourself on offense almost.
And of course, what both you said go hand in hand too, that if you give a speedster like Brown the extra half second to get open, Allen will hold the ball longer than some quarterbacks, and you're not getting home. The pass rush didn't help Nelson out as much as it usually does.
Exactly so. And I think I blame it on the press, because I saw a great article written on Steve Nelson during the week about how they weren't throwing the ball his way. And it's like, it's a kiss of death. Don't do it. And sure enough, when and it happens.
Is there anything else the defense needs to do moving forward with these last 2 games, knowing how critical they are, and as we've already talked about with the deficiencies you said on offense, and maybe trying to help out a little bit more?
I don't know. I would hope that the defense stays within itself and doesn't look at the situation and say, oh, my God, we have to have 5 interceptions in a game. Yeah, I mean, because then you start taking the kinds of chances that can blow up in your face.
Right. Yep.
Just continue doing what you're doing. To me, 17 points, you allow 17 points in a game, you're doing your job. I mean, it should be at worst a tie. I mean, I hate to ruin this show with research, but five times the Steelers offense penetrated the Buffalo 35-yard line. And in my mind, with the way Chris Boswell is kicking, that's scoring territory. The Steelers scored the 1 touchdown. They settled for a red zone field goal and turned the ball over the other 3 times. Just kick a field goal each of those 3 times and you win the game, just by the mathematics of it. So, I understand that the defense's outlook and they want to do more, and that should be the way they look at it, but I don't want them going and trying to take chances to do more. Just play the game, let it come to you guys.
I don't think there's a blueprint all of a sudden. Oh, this is how you attack the Steelers D. Like, best of luck. There's not a lot of weaknesses on that side of the ball.
No, there really isn't. I think what you said is right. Don't try to do too much. It is the old, how long have we heard this phrase? Do your job.
Do your job.
And even in Cincinnati, when they're doing more than their job. But anyhow, did I say that? Wow. That's
Out loud.
I did too. But the fact is, yeah. But the fact is, this defense is doing so well, and they've just got to continue to just button it down and play tight on their job assignments and don't overreach.
All right, we are unfortunately going to open up our time capsules when we return from this break. Don't go anywhere. The Steelers Roundtable returns in a minute.
We have another game this week to be able to correct things, and it's just unfortunate the way things went tonight. But win or lose, you have to have a short memory in this league.
Welcome back to the Steelers Roundtable, everybody. Some quick wide receiver news in terms of the Steelers. The team did make a roster move on Monday. They have released Tevin Jones and promoted Amari Darboh to the 53-man roster. Also in the open locker room session on Monday, Juju Smith-Schuster said he was able to do some work on Sunday during pregame, hopes to test the knee out again this week, and said, quote, "We will see for Sunday against the Jets." All right, as promised, guys, the time capsules. So Let's get to
So
it.
the one that's in there with my name on it, that's really not
I
the one.
wrote today. No, I'm kidding. All right, again, these were we submitted these before kickoff on Sunday, so let's see how we're going here. Oh, Labs, you're first. The difference will be more than one score.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the game was going to be low scoring. I mean, obviously, that's not really going out on a limb. The Steelers' defense, Buffalo's defense, the respective offenses. But I thought it could be, 17-3, 14-3, something like that, 20-10. I just thought that at the end of the game, it was going to be a close, hard-fought game, one score most of the way. And then at the end, the team that was leading would take advantage of the team that was trailing, taking a chance, failing, and then you tack on a field goal or by the way, touchdown to make the margin look, a little bit more significant than it really was in terms of the respective play on the field. But,
You win some, you lose some.
lose some, yeah.
Okay. Matt, whoever wins the special teams battle wins the game.
Yeah, and like everyone, I thought it was going to be a very low-scoring game. I think the Steelers' special teams, returners, the kicker and punter have come a long way. They were trending upwards. But I think I was right. I mean, the Barry punt that was awfully short was backbreaking. I mean, it was a big deal. But overall, special teams didn't come into play outside of that as much as I thought.
Well, and the one, let me just, to support what your theory here, was the Cam Canada drawing them off sides. It didn't work. If it had, maybe that then gives the Steelers a little bit more of an edge in the special teams and turns the outcome around a little bit. But I thought that was a legitimately sneaky legal play, but they called whatever they called.
I did too, but you know what? The last time when I was in Buffalo playing the Bills, Mike Webster squeezed it twice, drew Freddie Smirlis a nose tackle off twice. It was hilarious. Those guys were so mad at each other.
All right, Wolf, your prediction was Josh Allen will fumble at least once.
I thought I had this one. I mean, this is as close to a lead pipe lock as I could come up with. Think about it. He's fumbled 14 times this year alone. He's fumbled 22 times in 25 career games. I'm thinking to myself, as much as TJ's been on a roll with stripping the ball and Bud Dupree's strip sacks and all those things, with the fact that he's got more designed runs than Kyler Murray, I'm thinking that's a lot of opportunities to take the ball off this guy. And we came within just, I think, one slightly raised butt cheek of being wrong or right. So there you go.
It's a very technical term.
Highly technical.
All right, mine, I could cheat and cross out. I said Minkah Fitzpatrick will have a splash play. If I cross out and say Steve Nelson, I'd be right. But
true.
I just felt like
really works, though.
we haven't. I know. I'm Labs always thinks I cheat on this. I really don't. I just thought there had been so many splash plays from Minkah, especially at Heinz Field. Not that he's been quiet. He's still doing his job. You can go back to when Kyler Murray was trying to run into the end zone in Arizona the previous week. But I was just maybe hoping for again, we're spoiled, a pick six,
Sure.
a nice interception, something like that. But that's a no-go.
Well, as they used to say back in my day, if you ain't cheating, you ain't competing there.
All right, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Steelers Roundtable. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of Steelers Live.